My name is James Furlo, and this is a property analysis. I was introduced to another investor in a mastermind who was looking at investing in a property and asked if I was interested. It's all the way in Dayton, Ohio, which is a long ways away from where I live in Oregon. But you know what? I visited there once before, fully enjoyed myself, caught a couple museums, so why not? Let's take a look. Now, what caught my eye with this one is that he is saying that they can get a 20% internal rate of return. For reference, if I get around 10 to 15, I'm excited. And he's talking about an average annual return of 24%, which is really good. So like any good investor, I wanted to see the actual underwriting and numbers underneath it and compare it to my own model to see what I came out with. It's actually 40 units that comprised of 3 buildings on 2 parcels. So it's a relatively large place. Here's what one of them looks like. Here's what the second one looks like. I like it. This is a good aerial. You can see we've got one building up here and then we've got the other 2 here. All right, it's got a laundry facility. It's got regular apartment class appliances. Oh, that looks pretty nice. Recently redone, I can tell. Yep, looks like a standard apartment. Okay, kind of older cabinets, but you know, if you're into the dark look, they're pretty cool. Ooh, look at that pink. That's all right. That's a little older, but hey, whatever. As long as it doesn't leak, right? Okay, good carpet, good flooring. That's got to be a 30-inch one. It just looks small in that space. And here's another aerial of the place. One of the things that caught my attention is that right here is another really big complex with a pool, not bad. This seems old and abandoned. I don't know, it's an interesting neighborhood. You know, just real quick, just kind of taking a look at it. All right, cool. Normally I would start with some of the inputs and how we got there, but in this case, I'm just gonna jump right to the conclusion to show you the results that I saw given the numbers that they gave me. So they've got this thing under contract for $1.9 million. Now don't let this down payment fool you. It's actually $279,000, and that's because the stabilization cost, some of it is financed, but just because of the way my spreadsheet works, it kind of lumps it all into the purchase price. Doesn't really matter, just know that the down payment's actually significantly bigger. They want to rehab all 40 units, and here's what kind of caught my eye. It's a holding period for only 3 years. That was kind of my first that's interesting. I wonder what's going on there. In order to fix it up, it's going to cost $800,000, which, you know, proportion to what they're buying it for is actually a chunk of change. And I didn't know exactly how long it was going to take to complete, but I figured 24 months to do the stabilization, 1 year to just make sure we get all the prices where they need to be, and then we sell it. So it's got a total project cost of almost $3 million. And here's the number where you go, all right, that's what I'm talking about, an internal rate of return of 20.4%. with a cash on cash of 7.1. These are huge. An average annual return of 49%. Their underwriting has it at 24, and I think that just has to do with some of the assumptions and when payouts happen, but that's okay. Either way, they're huge numbers with an equity multiple of 1.96. They actually come in at 1.7 for theirs, so I'm a little bit more generous in how mine comes out, but you're gonna see some things real quick. So it's actually the second half of the summary that really catches my attention. Let's take a look. Look at this rent increase plan. For the 1 bed, 1 bath, here's what the market's given. And they actually gave me some individual examples of what they look like. And so when we look at this, we can see that, yeah, the current rents are below market, which is fine. But what's a little concerning to me is that their target rent is higher than what they expect the market to get. So that immediately had me go, okay, what's the strategy here? And my guess from what I can tell is that we're spending $800,000 here to take these 2 properties from a B to C class property all the way to an A class, the best of the best, highest quality, the most amazing it can be. That's what we're going for here. And so therefore, they think that they can get rents at the top of the market. I think that's what's happening here. I don't know why they don't have the 3.2 up at that same high level. I don't understand, but it's only 6 units, so it's really not a big part of this portfolio. The debt coverage ratio is, honestly, it's awesome. It's 1.6, which is great. We want a minimum of 1.2. And here's another thing that's really cool is they got a capitalization rate of 10.9% at the purchase. And what's interesting is that the yield on cost is actually a little bit lower at 10.1. But as a general rule, as long as the yield on cost is higher than your blended loan rate, you go, well, it's okay. It's worth it. Now, this last one is the one that really, really catches my attention, and it's this target exit price. So again, we're buying it for 1.9, and they've got the underwriting to sell it at a little over $4 million with an exit cap rate of 7.3. And so that's a 28% CAGR growth rate for the price of the property. And this is what honestly has me a little bit concerned. To explain my concern with this exit price, I think it's worth it to take a little bit of a break and explain the cap rate. The cap rate, otherwise known as the capitalization rate, is simply a ratio. It's the ratio of the net operating income divided by the price. So let's look at a couple examples. So if we've got revenue, let's say it's $1,000 a month times 12 months, 12,000. And let's just say the costs are $5,000. That means your net operating income is $7,000. Now, the nice part about this is that it lets you compare properties without having to worry about financing. Because what if one person pays cash and the other person has a huge loan? Using this system, it doesn't matter. So it's a way to compare properties. So in this case, let's say that the price is $150,000. That means that it has a cap rate of 4.7. There, 4.7%. Now, what we can do is we can compare two properties. Let's say we've got another one that's $12,000 in revenue, $5,000 in cost, so it has an NOI of $7,000. In other words, exactly the same. In this case, if the property is only $120,000, as you would expect, it's more valuable. So the cap rate is actually higher. It is a 5.8%. So that's the general idea behind a cap rate. It lets you compare properties. But here's what's cool about it is you can inverse this equation and derive what should the value of a property be given what a market's cap rate is. So we know that if a property has an NOI of X amount and we know what the market cap rate is, what are other properties selling for, then we can derive what the price is. So in this case, NOI of 7,000, cap rate of 5.8, which is what that second example was that we just looked at. It says the price is going to be 120,000 and some change. Now, the classic model that investors do is they say we're going to buy a property and we're going to figure out a way to make it better. Ultimately, improve the rents. So in this case, let's say we increase the rents on average of $100 a month. Revenue is now $13,200, which means if our expenses are exactly the same, our NOI is now increased to $8,200. Woohoo! And so if the cap rate in the market stays exactly the same, that means that we just created $21,000 worth of value. This is exactly the model that investors like myself use. Now, cap rates are never static, they always change, and there's no official number for a market. So you don't really know what it is outside of looking at what other properties have sold for. So what if we bought it at 5.8 because we're really, really good negotiators? If that's the case, we take this exact same example and say the market cap rate is actually 4.7. That means we didn't just increase the value by 21,000. We actually increased it by an additional 33,000. We could sell it for 174. Super exciting. And this is exactly what's being assumed inside of this spreadsheet. They are saying, yeah, we bought it at 5.8, but that's because we're really good negotiators. In reality, the market is selling at a 4.7, so we actually think we're going to get this. Now, when I underwrite a deal, I tend to be conservative because I really want to make sure that not only do I make money, but all of my investors make money. So one of the assumptions that I have is that cap rates will actually rise over time, which if you remember that equation, that means the value of the property has to go down. So if it's a 3-year hold and it's increasing by 0.1% every year, that means it would go from a 5.8 when I purchased it to a 610. So in this case, all exact same NOI, but now my sales price is only $134,000. I actually lost money. I lost $7,000 on this deal. What that means when I'm underwriting is that this increase from 12,000 to 32,000 needs to be better. There needs to be more opportunity to increase it because I know when I sell the property back, I'm not going to get as big of a bump as I could just naturally from the market. And so these are just different philosophies that investors have. Some are totally right to say, yeah, we're awesome negotiators. We get it at this, and we think we're going to sell it at the market. You could totally think that. And there are other investors who are a little bit more conservative who say, yeah, I know the market's trading at this, but this is what I bought it for. Maybe there was a reason why I had to get it at such a good cap rate. And in the future, I'm not going to pretend that cap rates will always go down and values will always be getting better. Now, it's highly possible that I get to the end of this project and it actually is a 4.7, in which case, dude, that's not hitting a double or a single, that's hitting a home run. yeah, we were thinking we'd sell it for $134, but we actually sold it for $40,000 more than what we thought. And that's a huge win for myself and my investors. And if a deal makes sense using this, then it will absolutely make sense with this. And this is how I try to think about cap rates and how cap rates are used in determining how good a deal is. That's enough hypothetical math. Let's get back to this deal. There are different ways to be conservative within a model. One of them is by assuming that your rents are going to be lower than what the market gets. Another huge one is to assume that the cap rate in which you sell at is going to be higher than what you bought it at. And in this case, it's significantly lower than what I bought it at. See, we bought it at a 10.9 and they've got it selling at a 7.3. When I typically underwrite a deal, I'm going to say it'd be higher. And in this case, I may actually put it more like 11.2 cap rate. Now, part of that is I'm assuming that I'm taking it from a C class to maybe a B plus type of property. And so I don't think I'm going to get the top of the market. I think in this case, the business plan really is to say, we're going to take it to the absolute best the market can handle. And so that's how they're getting to their 7.3%. Now, one of the other things they gave me, which is really cool, is a CoStar report that actually analyzes the market and says, here's what average cap rates are. Man, I love stats like this. This is super fun. So the green, gray, and red show where this property is at relative to the market. And what we're going to focus on is this cap rate right here. So they're in this 7.3 range here. So it's aggressive. It's not the absolute lowest cap rate that you can get, but they are definitely not conservative on this part of the deal. There's another section in this report that actually shows even more information on cap rates over time. So for individual sales, it looks like it's in that it's just under 7 range actually. And their forecast has got it to be at a 6.8. So I kind of see the logic that they're coming at where, it has been high historically, but now it's super low. So maybe they are just buying it at a fantastic deal. And in reality, they're going to be able to sell it at a 7.3. But I wanted to stress test this and see what it looks like if that cap rate doesn't exactly turn out the way that they want. So within my spreadsheet, I have a sensitivity analysis section. And so we can actually look at the different breakpoints for cap rates. Here, the property is estimated to be sold at a 7.3. There's our 20.4. But what if it's not that good? What if it's closer to an 8.5% cap rate? You can see we drop down to a 15.1. And just for the fun of it, I'm actually going to put an 8.5 into the model so we can see everything and how it looks. Okay, I'm going to be honest, it bothers me a little bit that when I did the goal C for 8.5, it actually came out to 8.43, but that's okay. We'll deal with it. All right, so instead of selling it for a little bit over $4 million, now they're only going to get $3.5 million for it. And so we still got an internal rate of return of 15%. That's pretty good. Cash on cash doesn't change because it shouldn't. The average annual return does drop some, and our equity multiple is down at a 1.7, which is what they actually promised there. Now, just for the fun of it, I would like to plug in what my normal assumption is for a terminal cap rate, just to see what it looks like. I understand that we're investing $800,000 into making this place better, and so you're trying to move it up market, and so the cap rate should go down. But again, just for the fun of it, let's see what it looks like. Here's where I put in my assumptions. And my assumption is that every year that you own it, the cap rate is going to go up by 0.1%. So my final one is going to be an 11.2 since we bought it at a 10.9. You ready for this? Wow, that is not a good deal if that's the assumption. An internal rate of return of 1.8. Cash on cash is still 7.1, as it should be. Your average annual return is like almost purely driven by the cash flow. Your return on equity is the same. Oh, this is a bad deal. If indeed you're only able to sell it for 2.6, that's just not a lot of money to begin with. I mean, it's better than losing money, I suppose, but not great investment. So here's my final thought on this property. It is 100% predicated on the team's ability to reposition this property, to say, yep, it used to be a C-class property, and now it is an A-class premier property. And not only do they need to be able to command premium rents, but in 3 years, they need to be able to command that premium price for the property. Can they do it? I don't know. It kind of depends on the team's experience. Have they done something like this before? Can Dayton handle a market like this? Those are all sorts of questions that I would have and ask the team before making an investment. So it could absolutely be awesome. And to be honest, when we even looked at it, even if they don't get a premium sale price and it's just average, it could still be a great investment. But I would have serious questions about the contractor and their experience doing these types of jobs. It's really critical that they nail it if they want this property to be a success. So that was super fun looking at it. I love just looking at all the nuances and the different parts of the deal. So cool. Hope you loved it too. Have a great day.